Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV in the new edition of our online interview series. Yeah, we are now getting an update. We want to get an update from Mogotes Metals, and Allen Sabet is here with us. Allen, good to see you. Hi, how are you?
It's great to be here as usual, Jochen.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. And we do this now today here from our studio in Austria. You had a great press release on the April the 2nd, which I really like because you showed some trench results with really nice copper and gold results and drill targets, especially not
Yeah.
drill results. Sorry, drill targets.
Yes,
So
that's right.
what is the case for that? Why are they so important?
They're really important because they're two of our, let's say, eight or nine high potential exploration targets here. As you know, we're situated in the Vicuña district. We're the southern extension of the Filo del Sol trend. So we're hunting for giants, and these are two potential giants that we've identified. So we have to drill them to understand whether or not that is the case, whether they're discoveries. But what you're seeing in this press release is the culmination of all the data we've gathered over the last 3 years that paints these as really high potential targets. So there are two of them there. One is called Cruz del Sur, and one is called Stockwork Hills. And we go through that in the press release. I don't know if you want me to tell you more now or ask me a
Of
question.
course, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, what I found really interesting is that you had a little bit more gold than copper, it looked to me. And what I also found
Yeah.
interesting is that now silver, zinc, moly, and of course, copper also comes into the play. So is there a change in the geology, or from where comes this? From
Yes,
where comes that?
that's a very good question. The northern target, which is the Cruz del Sur target, does have more gold. So we're seeing in the trenches 33 meters. So actually, let me just take a step back here. These are two great targets, and one of the reasons they're great is they've not been drilled. Okay, there is some adjacent drilling, one hole that we put in and one hole that Vale put in. Okay, Vale put a hole next to Stockwork Hills, next to what we're now calling the Stockwork Hills target, and we put a hole targeting something that we now realize was the wrong thing to target. So these are untested now, these new targets that we've identified. And one of the reasons why there is not peppered with drill holes is that there's a thick layer of gravel or dirt over the top that's been transported from the mountains down over the top. So there's not been a very clear picture of the geology at the surface. So we were led to these targets primarily by the geophysics, okay? By the geophysics. So then we followed that up with the trenching. So the reason the trenching is important is because we pulled back a lot of this dirt where we could, and we sampled that. And that's what we're seeing in this release. Now, we couldn't get access to a lot of the system. A lot of it, the dirt was too thick. But where we did get access in the northern target, you can see 33 meters of 0.64 grams gold. And in fact, if I was to zoom in, as you're going from the right of that trench to the left, to the west, you see the gold numbers getting more and more and more. All right. So starting at very low and then ending in 3 meters at 2.41 grams gold in that particular geological unit. And then it changes unit. So that's a pretty strong vector. And it says, go that way. Okay. And the way that it's pointing to go, and you can see in the circles that we've got in our little diagram there on figure 2, is it saying go to this magnetic anomaly, a strong magnetic body that we see in the geophysics that's also chargeable in the geophysics. So that's where we want to head next. Strong gold vectors in the geochemistry, and even in that drill hole that we drilled that's a little bit to the north. And in that drill hole, what we saw was what looks like the halo to a porphyry system, which we think is further south in that big magnetic anomaly. Why
So
is this a great target? Large scale. Surface data is telling us looking good. Geophysics looks interesting. Looks like both magnetic and chargeable, and relatively shallow. So and relatively low elevation. So this is at probably one of the lowest parts of our project. Easy to access, very close to our camp, and it's maybe 200 to 300 meters to the top of the target that we need to drill. Not a particularly deep one relative to other targets that we have. So we like this target, and we think
okay.
this has got a lot of potential.
Okay, so you would move on now with more surface sampling, trenching, and mapping. Probably when do you think you have enough data to start a drilling here?
This particular target, we have enough data. And so we are going to plan a drill hole. What we're doing now is, Jochen, we're going to get the totality of this field season's data and plan a whole, like a really fulsome drill campaign that tests all the targets. and put that together. So this is pretty much at the drill ready stage. We're doing some follow work. We've got guys now. Once you get the results from the lab in terms of the trenches, you go back and look at them again and ask yourself,
Okay.
look, what's going on? Why is the gold increasing, going this way? Test some of the ideas that we've put forward in this release and make sure that they're robust. And maybe before we put a drill hole, we'll run one more line of geophysics over the top. But these are what we consider to be very much ready to go. And then in the south, there was a second target there that is more copper in it, and the trenches over the top you can see in the data have more copper. And even when you look in figure 3 of the press release, you can see a historic hole from Vale, and the base of that hole, strong spikes in the molybdenum numbers, up to 137 ppm moly. That's what you see. Is a really strong kind of pathfinder there for a porphyry system. And so we
Okay.
want to drill into that adjacent chargeable body, which is marked as target 2. And that's another high priority target, similar in nature and just large scale, good geophysical anomalies, interesting stuff at the surface. So yeah, those two are pretty good to go.
Okay, super. If we look at the figure 1, for example, then where we see your whole project with the borders of your project also. So we see Cruz del Sur and Stockwork Hills is more in the south down there.
That's right.
And then in between to Nueva, Colonda, Rincon, Cambino, etc. So you have like a gap of, I would call it 2.5, 3 kilometers. Um, do you have any plans to also look at the gap in the future there, or is that just
It's a good
because
question.
of the landscape?
It's a good question. So, but you're talking about between Cruz del Sur and
Uh-huh.
the other red circles, there's a big
Yes.
gap. Okay.
Yes.
You know how I mentioned there's a big gravel layer over the top?
Uh-huh.
One of the issues here is that as the mountains protrude out and erosion and weathering brings material down from the mountaintop, the whole valley area has lots of cover. So you don't get lots of geology to really look at in that part of the project. We're driven by the geochemical data from that, which is not really that useful because it's transported material. It's not from there. Okay, so we've been going off of that. We've been going off of geophysics. There certainly could be something in that gap, but we've got some much more higher priority things that are sticking out that we can see, particularly in that northern part that's marked geophysics in progress and Meseta and Cumbre. So we're going to deal with the stuff that's obvious first, and that's attractive. Certainly, we've got geophysical data and soils and rock data in that gap. And there are some interesting patterns there, particularly in the magnetics that are related to that cross-cutting fault. You see that northwest running dotted line that cuts through the project? That's a key structure on the project. So where that intersects with other little structures is a plumbing system potentially that brings up metal. So you're right to look at that area and ask that question, but it's something we're still working on and understanding better.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as normal, you cannot do everything at the same time.
That's
That's
right.
impossible.
Yeah.
It just came to my mind because I found that really interesting that you go that far in the south. So there must be something in between. It looks to me like that you are on a huge trend of the district, yeah, which really moves downwards here from the BHP one here down now to your project, which is great. So let's come to your new claims because I think the market really did not realize so far that you have those claims which are
Yes.
next to Filo del Sol, which is the big monster here, I would call it.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and you started geophysics. So how is that going?
It's going really well.
Uh-huh.
Let's take one step back. This is super important for us because we've had, and if you look at that dotted line over there on figure 1, we've had an interesting and very attractive set of prospects there with Meseta and Cumbre.
Uh-huh.
But of course, we were missing that piece in the middle, and so that completed the southern extension of the Filo del Sol trend in the same Middle Miocene aged belt.
Uh-huh.
And so we've closed that picture off now, and we've run in with very experienced geologists sampling and mapping there. And now the geophysics gives us that subsurface picture, just like we saw in the trench results that we've gone over. And so we're doing really comprehensive geophysics over there because we know it's a high potential area from what we've seen in the geology and in the initial work that we've done. And so it's well underway. I think they're 2 weeks in now. The interim stuff we're seeing has been quite um, informative. I would need to get the rest of the data in before we put it out, but that's going to come
Of
out,
course.
and the results of the surface work is going to come out. So
Uh-huh.
we can expect to see both of those things in the coming
Mhm.
weeks.
Okay, super. I hope you have no fire alarm in the backyard here.
No, that's just the that's just the
Okay.
markets crashing. No, I'm just kidding.
Hopefully not. Okay, super. So, you're what when will you have the next news to say that?
Should be pretty soon. I mean, we're interpreting. One of the things you always have to understand. Look, the more data you get, the more of a full picture you're able to put out, and it's difficult to put
Uh-huh.
out half-baked information into the market and expect people to understand. So
Uh-huh.
that's when you see when we took our time to put this release on the trenching in the south of part of the project, because we're able to present a picture to explain why we find this target attractive, and what you're seeing is really what we're seeing. Uh,
Uh-huh.
we're seeing, and here's all the data we're seeing, and here's why we like it. So we're seeing the data as it comes through, and we're analyzing and interpreting. And in the coming weeks, we should have information in little chunks about the different prospects on our project and what we're seeing and what we're planning to do on each of these prospects. So
Okay, super.
I'd say in the next 4 weeks, I'd expect something at least once a week or in that kind of tempo. Yeah.
Okay, super. Yeah, then we make a nice comprehensive summary again.
Yeah.
Super.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So lots of work in front of you guys. You are full throttle on it, and yeah, I
Yes.
would say we look really forward to your news then, because I would say you are on elephant territory, definitely with your neighbors BHP Lundin. That is outstanding, and yeah, I would say through that you also have some advantages of infrastructure, hopefully, and for the future that looks really bright.
Yes. Yes. Thanks
Super.
so much, Jochen. Thanks for your time.
Perfect. Alan, thanks for talking to us, and we wish you well. Yeah,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, that was Allen Sabet, the CEO of Mogotes Metals. And is this the next big elephant here in the room, or let's say down there in Filo del Sol and Filo Sur? So it's really getting interesting here. I mean, geologically, that is a fantastic area where they are in. And it looks like, yeah, they are already on the right trace, on the right hunt for metal, and we look forward to the next big news here. Check out the company. It's still way too cheap. Make sure you get some Mogotes. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Austria today.